We are live. Welcome to another episode of the James Nolan Podcast. We got a lot to get into today. Gerrit Cole is getting Tommy John. Well, he already did get Tommy John. He is shut down for the entire 2025 season. Probably going to miss the start of 2026. With that said, considering the timeline for a Tommy John return is 12 to 18 months. Giancarlo Stanton, he might miss the entire 2025 season. So the Yankees are getting just bad news, bad news, bad news, bad news. And of course, Louis Heal's injury is also affecting the Yankees' 2025 outlook as well. So to start today's show, we're going to go over the Yankees' odds to make the postseason. Do we think they should still be considered favorites in the American League, a team that was just 3 wins away in 2024 of capturing their 28th World Series trophy? We're going to talk about all that. We're going to get into the Mets a little bit. Clay Holmes looking dominant again. He pitched 3.2 innings, struck out 8 batters across that stretch. Should we buy into the Clay Holmes hype train, or should we take a step back, considering it's going to be his first full year as a starting pitcher since he was called up to the MLB, I believe, 8 years ago? So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Juan Soto hitting a home run while getting chirped. We're going to get into the Jets signing Justin Fields. Do we think that they could be a postseason team? Are the Giants a postseason team with these few quarterbacks? Aaron Rodgers they're looking at. Russell Wilson they're looking at. Kirk Cousins could also be an option down the line, whether or not the Falcons decide to cut him or trade him. So we're going to talk about the Giants quarterback options, but let's start off today's pod talking about the Yankees' postseason chances. Did they take a hit? Yes, of course. Their postseason chances definitely took a hit, but let's be real, guys. The American League is still the American League. The Yankees are still the Yankees. The Yankees still have Aaron Judge. The Yankees still have Max Fried. Their rotation, is it as great as it is now without Louis Heel and Gerrit Cole? No. Is their lineup as powerful as it was in 2024 when they had a healthy Stanton, when they had a Juan Soto, even Gleyber Torres, who you can knock all you want, but Gleyber Torres would look pretty good in this lineup compared to the other guys in this lineup, such as Oswaldo Cabrera, who's likely to start in third baseman to start the year. You know, I don't really love the Yankees compared to how much I loved them last year. I think undoubtedly they were the best team in the American League. That's why they came out of the American League. This year, I think they may make the postseason. I'm not too confident in them coming out of the American League. I'm not even confident in them winning the division, but I am confident enough to say that they are the New York Yankees. I think if they can get to the trade deadline, above 500 in the playoff mix, I think we see Brian Cashman go out there and make some moves. And I get it, even myself, I've written some pieces on Fansided. You can check it out. Links right at the bottom. You can check out those articles. I even brought up some pitchers that they could target right now if they want to panic. But I don't think the Yankees should necessarily be in panic mode because I've said it on multiple pods. The team you start, the opening day lineup, the opening day starting rotation, even the opening day bullpen is not going to be the same team as it is going into the postseason. It won't. So the Yankees are going to add players. The Yankees are going to add pitchers. But now is not the time. I think they got to see, what if they get a surprise out of Clark Schmidt? I know he's not going to be healthy to start 2025, but he should be back within that first 2 weeks of the season. Clark Schmidt pitched to a 2.45 ERA last year when he came back. So don't be too worried about this rotation. Carlos Rodon, he pitched 16 wins he got 16 wins last year with a 3.97 ERA. Now with this lineup, is he going to get 16 wins? I can't guarantee it, but he did look good and at some points for the Yankees. He looked like the pitcher that he was from 2022 to 2023. He did look like that pitcher. So if we get a good version of Carlos Rodon, which I know he hasn't given you too many good performances in spring training so far, but it's spring training. We don't want to buy in or, buy low, really. It's just spring training. That's what you want to do. You don't overreact. But for Carlos Rodon, if they get a good version of Carlos Rodon, it changes the entire complexion of this rotation. And we got to factor in Max Fried signed that 8-year deal. Do I love the length of the contract? No, but I mean, now you have an ace. You have an ace even without Gerrit Cole. Louis Heel, that one sucks too. It does, losing Heel and losing Cole sucks. And Heel, I kind of expected at some point to get hurt because he did pitch over 150 innings last year. He never even pitched over 100 innings in the minor leagues. So you kind of expected Heel to have some type of setback injury-wise this year. I'm not saying you're happy either way with an injury, but you're kind of happy that it happens in spring training, because now Louis Heel, hopefully in June or July, will be back and will help this rotation. So it's kind of like a trade acquisition. I know I hate saying that, but it kind of is like a trade acquisition. You don't want to wish injuries upon anybody, but if you're going to get hurt, he picked a good time to get hurt. Let's be real. Gerrit Cole, on the other hand, it sucks. It sucks losing a guy like him. But then again, Max Fried is still in this rotation. So let's go over the pitchers 1 through 5, the likely rotation. I think Will Warren or Carlos Carrasco takes that 5th spot. I think it will be Will Warren. I think Carrasco now, when he was a candidate to get cut, now I think he makes that AA, AAA roster, depending on where they want to put him, just to get, innings. But Carrasco is going to stay on the team. He's going to stay within the Yankees organization for 2025, at least for now. But their rotation right now is Max Fried, Clark Schmidt at the number 2, Carlos Rodon, number 3, Marcus Stroman, number 4, and number 5 is probably Will Warren. Will Warren had a 10.32 ERA last year in just 6 games. But here's where we like Will Warren. His stuff. Will Warren's stuff is good. We can't ignore his stuff. And I know, the results have not kind of lined up to the way we like it, but Will Warren can be a good pitcher. And the thing with Will Warren is he's going to be the Yankees' number 5. You don't need Will Warren to be a 1 or a 2. You need him to be a number 5. So if Will Warren can just go out there and, let's say, across 6 innings, lets up 3 to 4 runs, that's good. That's good, because I think the Yankees lineup, as bad as it took a hit in the offseason, losing Gleyber Torres and Juan Soto, they still added good pieces. And with looking at the other teams in the American League, the Yankees still have, I would say, a top 5, top 3 even lineup in the American League, and Aaron Judge does help that. But that's a big key there. You got Aaron Judge. If Aaron Judge can drive in a run per game, and the rest of the Yankees can drive, and Aaron Judge is probably going to drive in at least 2 runs a game, not the whole entire season, because that would be insane. But the majority of the games, Aaron Judge is going to be driving in runs. So Will Warren just needs to do 5-6 innings, no more than 4 runs, and he will be okay. He will be okay. Peter says, still a better rotation without Cole than the Mets rotation. Debatable, but you still like the rotation. I think Marcus Stroman, as bad as he was in the second half, he's a first half merchant, man. He lights it up in the first half. So if they can get a good performance out of Marcus Stroman to start the season, which I think they will. This is a guy who goes out there and he never gets hurt. He's a guy who makes his starts every 5th day, and that's huge. That's very underrated. When you are a pitcher, like that's why the Mets signed Griffin Cannon. Even though he had over a 5 ERA, they signed him because he went out there and he made 32 starts last year. If you can get a consistent starter every 5th day, that helps. That helps because you know what you're getting. Every 5th day, this guy is going to be on the hill. So I think Marcus Stroman, we underrate him a little bit. I know he sucked in the second half. He was awful. But in the first half, in his first 12 starts, he had a sub 2.5 ERA. We can't forget that. He was 6-2. So see what you can get out of Marcus Stroman. That's why I don't think they should panic, because which Marcus Stroman do they get? If they get a good version of Marcus Stroman, they don't need to panic right away. They don't need to make that move for a guy like Eric Fetty of the St. Louis Cardinals. They don't need to make a move for a Dylan Cease or a Sandy Alcantara right away. And don't forget, they got prospects such as Spencer Jones. They got Everson Pereira. They got Jorbit Vivas. They got tradable prospects that probably don't have a fit on this team. Spencer Jones, you can make the case for, but I think they should sell high on Spencer Jones at some point in the season for a starting pitcher, but I don't think the time is right now. I think you let Spencer Jones, hopefully he rakes in AAA. Hopefully he builds up that trade value, and then you can use him, because Spencer Jones's value isn't going to get a Sandy Alcantara. Spencer Jones, his value is not going to bring back a Dylan Cease or Louis Castillo. So they cannot panic right now and overspend for one of those guys. See what you can get out of Marcus Stroman and Will Warren. Carlos Rodon, he's going to be on the team no matter what. He's going to be in the starting rotation no matter what. He has a $160 million contract. You have to live with whatever Carlos Rodon does. And like I said, Rodon had a sub-4 ERA last year. Rodon had 16 wins last year. I know the 16 wins are kind of a little bit fabricated because of the lineup they had. But at the same time, if you get the good version of Carlos Rodon, you might not even need to make a move for a pitcher. Because if Schmidt stays healthy, if Rodon pitches the way we know he can, the way he got that $160 million deal, then you have 3 pretty good starters, a solid 1 through 3, And then your 4 and 5 is Marcus Stroman and Will Warren. I think the Yankees still have a dependable rotation, not an A-plus rotation, not the best rotation in baseball like they once were just a few weeks ago, but they still have a dependable rotation because Max Fried is a huge signing now. It is a huge signing now. Let's go over Max Fried's numbers. Max Fried just last year went out there and made 30 starts, won, like I just said before with Marcus Stroman. That's very underrated. He made 30 starts in 29 starts actually in 2024. 11-10 record with a 3.25 ERA. And he only had 11 wins with a 3.25 ERA because the Braves offense wasn't as great as it was last year because of all the injuries they occurred and the down years they had from guys like Austin Riley and, Matt Olson. They didn't have their best years last year. So I think Max Fried can get more than 11 wins this year if he stays healthy. And that's the same thing with Clark Schmidt. Clark Schmidt, he's got to stay healthy. If Clark Schmidt stays healthy, that's going to be huge because what Clark Schmidt showed me last year, I think he can be a good starter. He had a 2.85 ERA across 16 games. And then he went out there in the playoffs, made 3 starts. I mean, he did let up 7 runs, but he still pitched pretty good in some games. So I do like Clark Schmidt as the number 3. I do like Rodon as the number 2. You mix and match, Rodon 3, Schmidt 2. It doesn't really matter to me. But having Max Fried is undoubtedly huge. So the Yankees rotation without Gerrit Cole, without Louis Heel, are they the best rotation in baseball now? No, not one bit. Losing Gerrit Cole sucks, but they cannot panic now. You got to see what you get out of the guys behind Max Fried. Because if Clark Schmidt pitches like he did last year, if Rodon pitches like he did from 2022 through 2023, you got 2 aces because Rodon was an ace in 2022 and 2023. We can't forget how good Rodon can be. So I think we should a little bit just analyze how good can these starters be to start the year. And then after a month or two, then we can start talking about, hey, maybe the Yankees do want to trade one of those guys, Spencer Jones, Jorbert Vivas, and Everson Pereira. Maybe you do make that move. But right now, I don't think it makes sense to go out there and panic. And that's the same case for the offense. The offense has a lot of what ifs. I get it. The offense has a ton of what ifs, especially without Stanton. I've been saying it all off season. The Yankees don't have a single guy in their starting lineup that has hit 30-plus home runs outside of Aaron Judge in the past 2 seasons. They had 2 guys who had 30-plus home runs last year, and that other guy was Juan Soto. So their lineup isn't as strong as it was last year, but they are also dependent on young guys. They're dependent on a lot of young guys. Ben Rice is one of those young guys. He's struggling in spring training, but when you look at Ben Rice's numbers in the minor leagues, Ben Rice was an absolute stud. He will likely be the DH, but let's go over Ben Rice's numbers in the minors because they are actually eye-popping. Let's just go over his 4-year career in the minors. He has a 282 batting average, a 935 OPS. Let's go over his 2024 numbers in AAA because these are eye-popping. 30 games, 32 RBIs, 33 RBIs, 12 home runs, and that's in 30 games. He put up a 1.088 OPS. Now you want to go over 2023? Let's go over 2023. Whoa, ads. 2023. Across AA, single A, and high A. 324 batting average, 1.048 OPS. 20 home runs, 68 RBIs, and that was just in 73 games. If Ben Rice can be a shade of what he was in the minors for the Yankees in the majors as their DH, we're going to have a conversation saying, you know what, maybe Ben Rice should be the DH going forward, even if Stanton comes back at some point this year. Because I think Ben Rice has that ability. Ben Rice he raked. There's no other way to put it. He raked in the minor leagues. Now, across 50 games last year for the Yankees, 171 batting average, 613 OPS. That's not great. But then again, he got called up out of nowhere. Anthony Rizzo goes down. It's like, oh, Ben Rice, here you go. Take the shot. So I'm not going to buy in and say 50 games from a kid that just got called up out of nowhere, expecting Anthony Rizzo to be healthy all year. I'm not going to overreact to those 50 games. And I'm not going to overreact to the minor league numbers. But at the same time, based off his minor league numbers, I think we can hopefully hold out that hope a little bit that Ben Rice can do something. I think he can. You look at his barrel percentage last year, his bat-to-ball profile. Let's go over his bat-to-ball profile. So I love this. Baseball Savant. If you want to see like what you can get out of a guy, go to Baseball Savant. They got really good stuff. But he can hit. He can hit. He barrels up the ball. He didn't qualify for like the exact percentiles last year, but he had a great barrel percentage. It was 15.6. That's good. That's good. His exit velo is up there as well. His average exit velocity last year was at 90, and that's through a down 50 games. So his chase percentage wasn't too high. He doesn't chase a lot of pitches. He's got good pitch selection. He doesn't strike out. He works a lot of walks. So I think Ben Rice can be a pleasant surprise for the Yankees. Very pleasant surprise. And he's a left-handed bat, very lefty dominant this lineup. And then we go over a guy like Jason Dominguez, another young guy they're going to be counting on. We all know why Jason Dominguez is the number one prospect in the Yankees organization. We all know. In 2023, only 8 games. Only 8 games. But he still put up a 980 OPS and hit 4 home runs in those 8 games. 4 home runs. Now his 18-game stretch last year, nothing like that 8-game stretch in 2023. 2024 last year, in those 18 games, he hit 179 with a 617 OPS. But, like I said, you look at the minor league numbers, and I know it's tough. You know, we're looking at minor league numbers. There's a lot of ifs. But he's the number one prospect for the Yankees for a reason. And this is why. In 2023, across 2 different leagues, across AA and AAA, he hit 265 with an 802 OPS, 15 home runs, 76 RBIs in 118 games. And my favorite stat, 40 stolen bases. So Dominguez has the potential to be, I would say, a 4-tool player this year, just because the defense. He can be a 5-tool player. He's still very young. He's only 22 years old. But the defense, I wouldn't be too worried, because if you're getting great offensive production out of this kid, that's going to be huge. All Dominguez needs to do is hit 250. All Dominguez needs to do is get on base. He had a 373 on base percentage across 4 years in the minors. So if he can get on base, let's say 36% of the time, he could turn a walk into a double. He could turn a single into a double. So that's why I think Dominguez, if you get production out of him and he becomes a leadoff hitter and he's getting on base a lot in front of a guy like Aaron Judge, who's probably going to hit second in the order, that's huge. That is huge. And then another guy they're going to be counting on is Anthony Volpe. And Anthony Volpe, I've been on him a lot. Anthony Volpe needs to produce. This is the year we need to see Anthony Volpe break out offensively. We all know what he can do on the defensive end. He's one of the best defensive shortstops in baseball, but he had a 283 on base percentage in 23, a 293 on base percentage in 24. Now in the playoffs, he gave you a little bit of hope in 14 games in the playoffs, 815 OPS, 407 on base percentage, 286 batting average. He gave you that hope in the playoffs. What Anthony Volpe showed me in the playoffs is that he's a winning baseball player. He wins at every step of his baseball career, going back to high school. He is a winner. He was a state champion in high school. So if Volpe needs to be a force in the lineup this year, he does. He really does. And if he gets on base, like Jason Dominguez, he can turn a walk into a single. He can turn a walk into a double. He can turn a single into a double. Like, Anthony Volpe has the potential to be a great hitter. And we know it. You look at his minor league numbers. His first full year in the minors, when he played 109 games in 2021, he hit 294 with a 1.027 OPS and hit 27 home runs. I'm not saying they're going to get Anthony Volpe at that level, but let's not forget he hit over 20 home runs in his rookie year in 2023. We can't forget that. Like, he does have pop. He also had 33 stolen bases in that minor league season in 2021. You look at 2022 across 2 leagues, the batting average dipped to a 249, but he still got on base 34% of the time. He had 342 on base percentage, 802 OPS, slugged 460, hit 21 home runs in 132 games, drove in 65, and he stole 50 bases. 50 bases. Now, that's insane. In AA in 2022, let's just go over the AA strictly numbers. 110 games, 44 stolen bases, 820 OPS. Volpe has the potential offensively. He can become one of the best shortstops all around in baseball. If, like I said, Dominguez hits 250, if Volpe hits 250, and he gets on base 34% of the time, just a 340 on base percentage, Volpe can be a really good offensive shortstop. Because when you take into account the defense that he has, that's huge. That's another thing. This team defensively is a lot better than it was last year. Aaron Judge isn't going to be their center fielder. He's going to be their right fielder. Cody Bellinger is a very good center fielder. Left field, Jason Dominguez, not perfect. Don't get me wrong. Second base, up the middle, Jazz and Volpe. That's an elite combo in the middle infield. Probably the best defensive middle infield, I'd say, in baseball. I don't think Jazz was lying when he said that. First base, Paul Goldschmidt, Gold Glove defender over there. Offensively, is he great? But we're going to get into him in a little bit. His numbers have declined, but he did hit 271 and had a 799 OPS after the All-Star break last year. So you have some hope for Goldschmidt, too. And Bellinger, I mean, yeah, he hit 260 last year, but he's playing in the short porch. He's going to be in the same lineup as Aaron Judge. I think Bellinger could be a candidate to hit 30-plus home runs this year. I do. He's still young. He's still in his 20s. He's in the prime of his career. He's not what he was in 2019, don't get me wrong. But he's still Cody Bellinger. He's still a respectable bat. So you got Goldschmidt, you got Bellinger, and you got a bunch of ifs. And, of course, Aaron Judge. But I don't think a lot of people are talking about Jazz Chisholm. Because everybody said it when Jazz Chisholm was when he was in a terrible lineup. He was in a terrible lineup when he was with the Marlins. He comes to the Yankees in a lineup with Judge, Stanton, with Soto, and he goes off. When he got traded to the Yankees in 46 games, a 273 batting average, an 825 OPS, he slugged 500, he had 11 home runs, 23 RBIs, and he stole 18 bags. Full season stats with the Marlins, with the Yankees, finished out with a 256 batting average, a 760 OPS, 40 stolen bases. Like, if Jazz can be that, if that's his floor, that's huge. And we can't forget, Jazz Chisholm is still very young too. Jazz Chisholm is only 27 years old. He's probably entering the prime of his career this year. So we can't forget that Jazz is still on this team. Defensively, he's amazing. But offensively, he can also be very good. Like, he got called up to the league in 2022. 2022. Well, 2020. But 2022 was his first real season, because in 2020, he only played in 21 games. So that's what I don't really view that as his first real year. So I like Jazz. I think Jazz can be great. I really do. Now, if Jazz plays like he did last year, even when he was with the Marlins, you want to put those combined stats together, great. But I think he can be what he was with the Yankees for a full year. I really do. So I don't think the Yankees are dead in the water with these injuries, even if Stanton is out for the entire year. See what you got in Ben Rice. See what you got in Dominguez. See what Volpe can do. And then we can have that talk a month or two into the season, and then we could start to panic and say maybe they do need to make some moves. Maybe they do need to trade for Nolan Arenado. But why trade for Nolan Arenado too when, let's say, come the trade deadline? If the Yankees traded for Nolan Arenado right now, trade deadline comes around, they give up prospects for Nolan Arenado, then they don't have those prospects to trade at the trade deadline for a potential better bat. Because Nolan Arenado has been declining. Nolan Arenado isn't, what up, Pete? Nolan Arenado isn't what he was when he was in the prime of his career. Let's take a look at Nolan Arenado's numbers last year. He did hit 272. Yes, he hit 272. But you look at his OPS, significant drop-off from the prime of his career. It's 719 OPS compared to 2022 when he had an 891 OPS. Had a 325 on-base percentage compared to 2022 when he had a 358 on-base percentage. 16 home runs compared to 30-plus home runs in 2021 and 2022. Nolan Arenado isn't the same player. I think it would be an upgrade right now. But like I said, then you're stuck with Nolan Arenado the whole entire year. Now, the Yankees, there's one trade I would make, and this might sound crazy, but this is what I want to finish off at with the Yanks. And then we'll get into the Petcoda predictions, because right now they're projected to get 85 wins. And 85 wins, I think that's that could get them into the wild card, especially in the American League. But if there was one trade that I would make, that I would hold out for, it's for Mike Trout. And I know it sounds crazy, But the Angels do want to get rid of Mike Trout because Mike Trout could get them back a large haul of prospects. It could reset the entire Angels organization. They moved him over to right field now. But think about this. If Stanton is actually out the entire year, Yankees trade for Mike Trout. You put Trout in left. You have Dominguez DH. Or you keep Dominguez in left. You put Mike Trout in center field, and you have Goldie DH, and you put Bellinger at first. Or you have Bellinger DH. But imagine Mike Trout, a healthy Mike Trout. That's why I think they should hold out, because if Mike Trout becomes available, I think that's the A+ move they should make. Because Mike Trout, he hasn't played in over 150 games since 2015. So I don't think they should trade for him right now. I think they should wait it out, see if he stays healthy. But I mean, I think he could be the guy that changes the landscape of this Yankees team going into this year. So that's some players I would hold out for. You know, you can hold out for a guy like Fernando Tatis. I mean, the Padres have been willing to trade stars, all their stars almost. And if the Padres, if they take a hit this year, I mean, the NL West, Giants upgraded their team. Dodgers, even after winning a World Series, upgraded their team. Padres didn't really upgrade their team. So, I mean, maybe a guy like Tatis becomes available who can play all over the diamond. He can play short, he can play second, he can play third, he can play any position in the outfield. So you can plug him in wherever you want. I mean, if they were able to get a Tatis who last year in only 102 games hit 21 home runs, had an 833 OPS, and then look at his 2023 numbers, 141 games, 25 home runs, and this was after missing the entire 2022 season due to a PED suspension. Slugged 449, 78 RBIs, 25 home runs, 29 stolen bases. Like, they could hold out for a guy like him too. So there's players around the league where you kind of want to hold out for instead of just panicking and trading for a Nolan Arenado or trading for an Eric Fetty. Because what if Sandy Alcantara comes back to his Cy Young form with the Marlins, and Marlins do want to trade him, so maybe you can trade for him a few months into the season. Maybe you can trade for Dylan Cease or maybe Michael King again. Who knows? Bring back Michael King. I don't think the Yankees should panic. Should fans be worried? Yeah, 100%, because you were 3 wins away from holding up that 28th World Series trophy. And now you're without Gerrit Cole, you're without Juan Soto, you're without Giancarlo Stanton, you're without Louis Heel. 4 guys who played a significant role last year in getting to the World Series. But at the same time, they are in the American League. They are in the American League. The AL isn't what it was a few years ago. Like, who is the team to beat in the American League? Is it the Red Sox? Is it the Orioles? Is it the Royals? Is it the Texas Rangers who sucked last year? Like, who is the team to beat in the American League? You can make a serious case and say it's still the Yankees. And it's still the Yankees because they have Max Fried. It's still the Yankees because they have Aaron Judge. It's still the Yankees because their bullpen had a massive upgrade. I mean, you take into account all the blown saves Clay Holmes had last year. And that's not a knock on Clay Holmes. I'm going to talk about him and rave about him in a little bit. But Clay Holmes was not a closer last year. He was probably the worst closer in baseball. Their defense also played a significant role in that. But like I said before, their defense has a significant upgrade. You have the 2 best middle infielders. I would say the best middle infield in all of baseball with Jazz and Volpe. You have a Gold Glove first baseman. Oswaldo Cabrera sucks offensively, but he can play third. Judge is a great outfielder in center field. Now you move him over to right field. I mean, Judge has made one major error in his entire career at the wrong time, of course, but it's just one error. Left field, yeah, Dominguez ain't great, but Cody Bellinger is a natural center fielder out there. And Austin Wells, I didn't even talk about Austin Wells, but he's got pop in his bat. We all know what Austin Wells can do offensively. Had a 103 plus OPS last year. And the defense he provides is pretty good. So I don't think the Yankees should panic. I think their bullpen is dominant. Devin Williams back there in the back end of the bullpen with Luke Weaver. I think that's going to be great. They're going to be getting Jake Cousins back at some point in 2025. You brought back Tim Hill. Like, the bullpen is still the bullpen. The bullpen of the Yankees is always good. So I think the Yankees are fine. I still think they're the team to beat in the American League. They're definitely not what they were in 2024. Don't get me wrong. But I don't think fans should be holding their heads down saying, oh, just because we don't have Gerrit Cole, just because we don't have Stanton to start the year, maybe he misses the entire year. But like I said, you got Max Fried. See what you can get out of Clark Schmidt. See what you can get out of Rodon. Like I said, Stroman started off the year great in 2024. Will Warren doesn't have to be an ace. Just has to let up 3 to 4 runs across 5-6 innings. And the Yankees can still win because their bullpen is that good. And if their lineup can score more than 5 runs in a Will Warren start, I think they can win more Will Warren starts than losses. So we'll see. We'll see. Only time will tell. But, I don't think Yankees should panic. I don't think they should go out there and make that panic move. I think they're playing it smart. I see a lot of fans, you save $27 million in insurance money. You're getting that money in insurance for Gerrit Cole's injury. But I don't think they should make a panic signing, because who are you going to sign? Like who are they going to sign? You look at the available free agents in the starting pitcher market right now. I mean, Johnny Cueto is available, and he let up 9 earned runs last year in 11 innings. You want Johnny Cueto? No, you don't. You want to go trade for Jordan Montgomery, who had a terrible year last year? Had over a 5 ERA? No, you don't. You don't. But hold out, see what you can get, and maybe Montgomery pitches well again. Maybe a trade for him. But if you trade for him now, you're giving up prospects that you could give up at the trade deadline for probably somebody better. Maybe a Sandy Alcantara if he returns to form. Maybe a Dylan Cease. Or even that, like I said, a Michael King. That would be a twist. That would be a really big twist. But I don't think Carlos Carrasco is even going to be in this rotation. So anybody panicking, oh, Carlos Carrasco, any Met fan that's saying Carlos Carrasco is your number 5, they're dumb. They're dumb. Will Warren's your number 5. Will Warren's the number 5. And like I said, he doesn't need to be an ace. He needs to be a number 5. All right, let's talk about these Mets. Clay Holmes, I want to talk about him. I want to talk about Brandon Nimmo, his potential injury. Francisco Alvarez, that sucks. That does suck, losing Francisco Alvarez. But let's just lead it off with Francisco Alvarez. The Mets aren't screwed without Francisco Alvarez. I see a lot of Mets fans saying, oh, it sucks. This lineup's going to take a hit without Francisco Alvarez. No, it's not. Francisco Alvarez last year, he hit .237 with a .710 OPS. He only hit 11 home runs. And even in 2023, when he hit 25 home runs, he had a .209 batting average with a .721 OPS. If Francisco Alvarez hit 25 home runs and had, let's say, an 800-plus OPS, I'd be saying, oh, it sucks. It sucks. But we're not taking a dip in catch and production. We're not. Louis Torrens and Francisco Alvarez did not provide us a lot on the offensive side at all last year. At all. So the Mets shouldn't panic and make a move for a catcher, trade-wise, free agent-wise. You want to go out there and sign a guy like a James McCann? I could see, James McCann and Louis Torrens. James McCann has some comfortability with the Mets. We're not expecting James McCann to be what we expected him to be a few years ago. But I'm fine with Louis Torrens. I'm fine. Like I said, we didn't get much on the offensive side from our catchers last year, so I don't think it's a big hit at all. I think it's a hit for Francisco Alvarez, because Francisco Alvarez, going into the year, we're hoping that Francisco Alvarez can break out. We're hoping that he can be the player that we all thought he could be. Just a few years ago, he's the number 1 prospect in baseball. He hasn't shown it yet. So it sucks for him. It doesn't completely suck for the Mets. It sucks for the fans, because fans like me, were saying, we think he can do it. We want him to do it. But now we just got to wait. And it's only 2 months. 2 months. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. 6 to 8 weeks. So we'll probably miss all of April and probably half of May. And then we'll get him back. I think we can sustain being without Alvarez for 6 to 8 weeks. I don't think it's a big deal. Now, we lose Brandon Nimmo. That's another story. That's a huge story. Because if Brandon Nimmo's hurt, that sucks. That would suck. One, Nimmo needs to stay healthy. Because when Nimmo's healthy, he's a top 5 left fielder. I mean, going into last year, Brandon Nimmo's power numbers have significantly increased over the past few years. Going into last year, you take a look at his numbers. just going into last year where he was playing with plantar fasciitis. He had a 270 career batting average going into last year with an 828 career OPS. And you look at his 2022 numbers. In 2022, he had 274 with 16 home runs. In 2023, 274 again, this time with 24 home runs. And then last year, he had 23 home runs. But his batting average dropped last year. It was a 224. Power numbers kind of stayed the same. But, I mean, a 224 batting average and a 727 OPS. We didn't get the best out of Brandon Nimmo. Now, the best Brandon Nimmo is what he was in 2023, where he had an 829 OPS, 274 batting average, and those 24 home runs. But we need Brandon Nimmo. I think we do. Because as a cleanup hitter, which on paper, you want your cleanup hitter obviously to be a power bat, a home run hitter, a slugger. But I look at this Mets lineup, and I think Brandon Nimmo is the perfect cleanup hitter for the Mets. Let's take a look at his numbers with runners on in 2024. With runners on in 2024, Nimmo hit 299 with a 968 OPS and drove in 82 runs. Now, Nimmo stays healthy this whole entire year. If Nimmo is in that lineup in the 4th spot with guys like Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor who get on base a ton, Nimmo can have 100-plus RBIs. So I'm not worried about Brandon Nimmo being our 4-hitter at all. I want him to be our 4-hitter. I think it makes perfect sense when you look at those numbers. So we need Nimmo to stay healthy. That's an injury where I'm worried about. If his knees aren't holding up, that's not going to be fun. We need Nimmo. Because he makes that lineup complete. He does. I know Juan Soto and Lindor and Alonso are the big 3. And then Mark Vientos, you could throw him in as a big 4. But Nimmo's also a huge factor in that lineup. Because if he does what he does with runners on throughout his whole entire career, he will have 100-plus RBIs if he's healthy. He will. So, I mean, you want that. You want Brandon Nimmo in that 4-hole every single day. Every single day. Now, I look at the Mets lineup. They were ranked number 2 according to MLB.com today. And, part of it is because Brandon Nimmo's in that lineup. Mark Vientos, 27 home runs in 111 games last year. He had a breakout year at just 24 years old. Obviously, the addition of Juan Soto, a guy who has never had an on-base percentage below 400 through his 7 years, which is insane. 7 straight years without an on-base percentage below 400. I don't think we realize how hard that is to do. And then Francisco Lindor, best leadoff hitter in the game by far. Outside of Shohei Ohtani, not by far. I messed up that one. Shohei Ohtani is probably the best leadoff hitter by far. But, I mean, your front 3, Lindor, Soto, Alonso, and then at 4, you got Nimmo. 5, you got Vientos. 6, you got the DH platoon of Marte and Winker. And I love that platoon. Let's talk about that platoon a little bit. Because we all know Jesse Winker's not going to be hitting left-handers. Starlin Marte is not going to be hitting right-handers. Listen to these numbers from last year. In 2024, versus left-handed pitching, Starlin Marte hit 333 with a 916 OPS. Jesse Winker hit 278 with an 849 OPS. That's pretty good. If that's the production you get out of the DH spot, that's a significant upgrade from JD Martinez last year. Significant upgrade. Because you look at JD Martinez numbers, who was our everyday DH, they are nothing compared to what Winker did against right-handers and Marte did against left-handers last year. So basically, our DH platoon would have an 800 OPS last year with over probably a 300 batting average. Last year, the Mets this is what they got out of their DH. JD Martinez's numbers: 725 OPS, 235 batting average, only 16 home runs. 16 home runs. Not great. Not great. And just take that into account. Last year, Jesse Winker. Last year in 2024, Jesse Winker had 14 home runs. So if we can get 14 home runs out of Winker and 5 out of Marte, that's an upgrade at DH. That's a pretty big upgrade at DH, especially factoring in the batting average and the OPS. And then I look at the front 3. Lindor finished second in MVP voting last year. Like, Francisco Lindor really had probably his best season of his career last year. And now he'll have Juan Soto hidden behind him. So I think he can be even better, which is crazy to think. But last year, Lindor hit 273 with an 844 OPS, slugged 500, hit 33 home runs, drove in 91 runs, and 91 runs out of the leadoff spot. I know he didn't hit leadoff until May, but still 91 RBIs, and you're playing the chunk of your games hitting leadoff. That's hard to do. That's hard to do. When you get 33 home runs and 91 RBIs and a 273 batting average out of your leadoff hitter, that's really good. And then Juan Soto, I mean, is he going to hit 40-plus home runs? I don't know. But you can probably bank on him hitting 30-plus. And like I said, Juan Soto, everybody's like, home runs this, home run that. Juan Soto is not a pure home run hitter. He's not. Let's go over his numbers throughout his career. 2018, first year in the league, 292 batting average, 406 on base percentage, only 22 home runs. 2019, big spike, 34 home runs. I mean, Jeff McNeil almost had 20 home runs in 2019. That was the juice ball era. 282 batting average, 401 on base percentage. Then you look at 2020, hit 351 with a 490 on base percentage. Still a 1.185 OPS. 2021, 145 walks, 465 on base percentage, 313 batting average. Jumped to 2022, only hit 242, but he still had a 401 on base percentage, and he hit 27 home runs. So even if he hits 27 home runs like he did in 2022 with only a 242 batting average, he still generated the most walks in baseball. He still got on base 40% of the time. He still had an OPS of 853. Like, at his floor, he's still one of the best hitters in baseball. And then in 2023, without Aaron Judge, 275 batting average, 930 OPS, 35 home runs, 109 RBIs. And then last year with Aaron Judge, 41 home runs, playing in the short porch definitely helped. Being in the same lineup as Aaron Judge definitely helped. 288 batting average, 419 on base percentage. But this is a guy with a 421 career on base percentage. So he's not going to get on base less because he doesn't have Aaron Judge. In fact, I think he might get on base even more because Aaron Judge is the only player last year who had more walks than Juan Soto. So I think he can get on base more because pitchers are going to be fearing him. And I think it helps Lindor. I think it helps Pete Alonso because Pete Alonso last year had his worst season. Pete Alonso, keep in mind, his worst season last year was Willy Adames' best year. Last year, Pete Alonso, 788 OPS, not bad. 88 RBIs, not bad. 34 home runs, not bad. 240 batting average, not bad. Like, I think Pete Alonso can get back to what he was in 2021. And if he puts up with his numbers in 2021, I think we're going to have a very, very good lineup. In 2021, Pete Alonso hit 262 with an 863 OPS, hit 37 home runs, and drove in 94 runs. I think Pete Alonso is going to drive in more than 100 runs again this year because in 2019, 2022, and 2023, he drove in over 118 runs. 118 runs. He hit 53 home runs in 2019, 40 home runs in 2022, 46 home runs in 2023. Now, if we get this version of Pete Alonso, the 2022 version of Pete Alonso, we're going to have 3 MVP candidates in our lineup. In 2022, Pete Alonso drove in 131 runs, had a 271 batting average, 869 OPS, and hit 40 home runs. Hitting 271 while hitting 40 home runs and driving in the most runs in baseball. I mean, if we get that Pete Alonso, that's a game changer. That is a game changer. So now let's talk about the rotation. Now that we talked about the lineup, let's talk about the rotation. Let's lead off with the back end guys. Back end guys, right? 4, 5, 6. Tyler McGill, Griffin Cannon, Paul Blackburn. Not great, right? We look at their ERAs, not great. Let's take a look at each one of them individually. Tyler McGill, last year, had a 4.04 ERA. What that means, that's up 3-4 runs across 6 innings. Griffin Cannon last year, he sucked. Griffin Cannon sucked last year. Now, he needs to do better. He needs to pitch to a low 4 ERA. He can't pitch to a 5.19 ERA like he did last year. But he has a 4.78 career ERA. So that's like 4 to 5 runs across 5 to 6 innings. Paul Blackburn. Let's go over his career numbers and last year's numbers. So Paul Blackburn, career ERA of 4.85. Last year had a 4.66 ERA. So basically same thing as Griffin Cannon. 4 to 5 runs across 6 innings. And I'm not expecting Blackburn and Cannon to go out there for really more than 4 or 5 innings. So if they can just let up 3 runs a game, hand it over to the bullpen. Jose Budo had a 2.60 ERA last year. Haskar Brasmoen, he's he's a dependable reliever, especially what he's showing us in spring training so far. He had a sub-4 ERA last year. You bring in AJ Minter, Edwin Diaz. I think, we are really underrating Edwin Diaz. Last year he struggled, but we can't forget he missed the entire season in 2023. So just to expect him to snap back into his 2022 self, I think was a little unfair. I don't think he's going to be what he was in 2022, but I think we can expect a sub 2.2 ERA. And we know what AJ Minter can do. I mean, he's been one of the most dependable relievers since he's been in the league. And then Daniel Nunez, he'll be healthy. Last year, he had a sub 2.4 ERA. So with those 3 guys in the back end, if our lineup, similar to like what Carlos Rodon did last year, had an ERA in the high 3s, and he had 16 wins. He didn't have 16 wins because he was a dominant pitcher. He had 16 wins because he put his team in positions to win, because their lineup was they had the most home runs in baseball last year. They scored a lot of runs last year. That's why he had 16 wins, because he got helped by his lineup. So that's what those back end 3 need to do. If they can just let up 3 to 4 runs across 5-6 innings, every 6 innings, let's say they let up 4 runs. You're telling me this lineup can't score more than 5 or 6 runs more times than not? If the Mets can average over 5 runs a game, which they did last year, without Juan Soto, without the platoon DH that they have now, I think they can be pretty good. I think they can win more than they lose with those back-end guys. Now let's jump to the front 3. I love the front 3. And then Sean Manaea will also be back at some point, so that will be huge. Sean Manaea had a career year last year. Like, Sean Manaea changed the way he pitches, changed his arm angle, and he turned into a completely different pitcher. So I think Manaea is going to be a significant help. Manaea will be back sometime probably in April or May. Now you look, and then we also got to factor in Brandon Sproat. He's probably going to get the call up. If he dominates in AAA to start the year, I think within 6 to 10 starts in AAA, pretty good starts, we're going to see Brandon Sproat in this rotation, so we can kick one of those back-end guys out, which will be huge. Brandon Sproat last year dominated in single A, dominated in AA, had a 2.45 ERA in AA, a sub 1.5 ERA in single A. And then in AAA, he struggled only, I believe, 7 games. But, I'm not going to buy into 7 games struggling like I did with Will Warren. I'm not going to buy in to him struggling in 6 games at the MLB level. I'm not going to buy in to Brandon Sproat sucking because he had 6 bad games in AAA last year. But now you look at the front 3 guys, right? Kodai Senga. And we can't forget what Kodai Senga did in 2023. And we can't even forget what he did last year. His one start last year, he dominated the Marlins in 5 innings, then got hurt. Then you look what he did in the playoffs. I mean, 1 bad pitch to the Philadelphia Phillies without any real rehab assignment. 1 bad pitch to Kyle Schwarber. And then he shut down Bryce Harper. He shut down Nick Castellanos. He shut down Trey Turner. Like, we can't forget the positives that he brought us in the NLDS. Yes, in the NLCS, he sucked. You can put that 1 loss in the NLCS on him. You can. He let up a lot of runs in that 1 inning. But at the same time, like I said, he had no real rehab assignment. He pitched 5 regular season innings. So in total, he had 7 innings going to face the best lineup in baseball, the World Series champions. He had 7 innings in the entire year under his belt. So I'm not going to overreact for 1 bad inning against... And that's why everybody's not calling him an ace anymore, because he had 1 bad inning against the Los Angeles Dodgers. Give it a break. Senga, in 2023, went out there and made 29 starts, pitched to a 2.98 ERA, garnered up 12 wins, and struck out over 200 batters. He had a 10.9 strikeout per 9. And then, like I said, in his lone start in 2024, he struck out 9 batters across 5.1 innings. Kodai Senga, let's go over 2023. Just the top pitchers in baseball. Let's go over those 2023 numbers. Let me bring it up real quick. 2023 pitching leaders. So let's go over what we want to go over first. Let's go strikeouts. So strikeouts, Kodai Senga was tied for 14th with 202 Ks. 14th. So he's a top 15 pitcher at the very least in strikeouts. He had more strikeouts than Corbin Burns. He had more strikeouts than Lance Lynn. He had more strikeouts than Jose Barrios. Like, he was a strikeout pitcher. Now let's go over ERA. Kodai Senga in 2023 finished 5th in the entire MLB in ERA with that 2.98 ERA. Kodai Senga had a better ERA than Louis Castillo. He had a better ERA than Zach Eflin, Zach Gallen, Corbin Burns, Louis Castillo. He had a better ERA than Zach Wheeler. Had a better ERA than Logan Gilbert, Spencer Strider. Like, Aaron Nola had a better ERA than Aaron Nola. So if we're calling guys like Zach Wheeler aces, which he is, if we're calling, I still do think Zach Wheeler is better than Senga. We got to put respect on Senga's name. We can't forget he was 5th in the entire MLB in ERA in 2023. He was top 15 in strikeouts with only 29 starts. We can't forget that. Like, we can't. He was an NL All-Star in 2023. So Kodai Senga, whether you want to call him an ace or not, I'm calling him an ace. If he's healthy, if he goes out there every 5-6 days, Kodai Senga will be an ace. He finished 7th in NL Cy Young voting in 2023. 7th. So let's go over the Cy Young voting that year. Let's go over. Top 8. Blake Snell 1, Logan Webb 2, Zach Gallen 3, Spencer Strider 4, Justin Steele 5, Zach Wheeler 6, Kodai Senga 7, Corbin Burns 8. So we had a better year than Corbin Burns, and everybody's calling Corbin Burns an ace. Well, if Corbin Burns is an ace, then I'm sorry, Kodai Senga is. Corbin Burns last year had a 2.92 ERA, and his strikeout per 9 was 8.4. And in 2023, Kodai Senga's lone year, because 2024, I don't even count, pitched 5 innings, had a better strikeout per 9 with 10.9, had a better ERA. So I don't know how we're going to go out there and call guys like Corbin Burns an ace, but not Kodai Senga an ace. We got to put some respect on his name. And we got to keep in mind that was his first year in MLB coming across from Japan. So now let's go over some of the Japanese guys' numbers in their first year in the bigs. Let's go over Yamamoto, the richest pitcher in baseball. Last year, in his first year, he pitched to a 3 ERA, and his strikeout per 9 was 10.5. Senga had a 10.8 with a 2.98 ERA. Shohei Ohtani, who was a Cy Young candidate before he obviously went down with the Tommy John. Didn't even get, but Ohtani, his first year in the bigs as a pitcher, not as a batter, because as a batter he's been MVP multiple times, 2-time MVP. Let's go over his pitching numbers. Pitching numbers his first year in the league: 3.31 ERA, 11 strikeout per 9, so he does strike out more. But let's go over 2021. 2021, his third year in the league, 3.18 ERA. 3.18 ERA with only 156 strikeouts. So if I give you Shohei Ohtani's numbers, 3.18 ERA with only 156 strikeouts, and then I give you Kodai Senga's numbers in 2023, his first year in the bigs, where he had a 2.98 ERA with over 200 Ks, I think without looking at names, you'd probably pick Senga over Ohtani. So I think Senga can be an ace. Now let's get into David Peterson. David Peterson pitched great last year, and I don't think it's, a lone surprise year. Was it a surprise? Yes. Yeah. If you would have told me last year going into 2024 that David Peterson would be a lock in the starting rotation in 2025, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. But David Peterson proved us all wrong. He had a 2.90 ERA last year, a 10-3 record. Like, he pitched great. And then I look at 2023, obviously a 5.03 ERA, not great. But you look at 2022, 3.83 ERA across 28 games. And in 2020, across 10 games, had a 3.44 ERA. So Peterson, I mean, if he can be a sub-4 ERA guy, he doesn't even need to pitch to a 2.90 ERA. If he's a sub-4 ERA guy, like the back-end guys, Griffin Cannon, Paul Blackburn, and Tyler McGill right now, if Peterson can pitch to a sub-4 ERA, we're going to win more than we lose with him. We are. And then David Peterson in spring training has looked sharp. And spring training is very different for hitters and pitchers. For hitters, if, Aaron Judge was hitting 083 right now. So, 083 right now. I'm not worried because it's Aaron Judge. Francisco Lindor hitting below 200 right now. I'm not worried because it's Francisco Lindor. I'm not. But for pitchers, you look at it a lot more. Like Gerrit Cole let up 6 runs. We were panicking and then we find out that his UCL is torn. So I'm more worried about pitchers in spring training than hitters. And I look at his numbers. He hasn't allowed a single earned run in 2 appearances so far. He had 5 strikeouts against the Marlins in 3 innings of work in his first appearance, and then 4 innings of work against the Marlins. Didn't let up a single run again. Only let up 1 hit. And then I look at Clay Holmes, probably our number 2. I would say Clay Holmes is our number 2. And Clay Holmes across 9.2 innings has not allowed a single run. Not a single run. Only 2 hits allowed across those 9.2 innings. In his most recent appearance on March 9th, just 2 days ago, 8 strikeouts across 3.2 innings. Clay Holmes, in my opinion, was not used right with the Yankees last year. He was not. Because he's not a closing pitcher. He is a ground ball pitcher. So I don't think Clay Holmes was used right last year as a closer. Because I look at his numbers. After he left the closing role. And he was a much better pitcher. And in the last 4 seasons, he's pitched to a 3.05 ERA. He pitched to a 2.68 ERA during his time with the Yankees. So I don't understand really the reason that we're talking about Clay Holmes as a bad pitcher because he wasn't good in the closing role. I mean, if Max Fried was a closer, he probably wouldn't do too well. Now, let's be real, he wouldn't do too well. So I look at Holmes' numbers after he was taken out of that role. Let's see if I can find them. Where would they go? They were just in my notes. I lost them, but let's talk about it anyways. So Holmes, let's compare him to Max Fried right now. I just brought up Max Fried, right? Let's compare him to Max Fried. He generates a ton of ground balls. 64.6% of the batted balls last year, Holmes generated ground balls. In comparison to Max Fried, let's go over Max Fried's his batted ball profile. So 64.6 from Holmes last year. And then you look at Max Fried last year, he had a 59.2. 59.2. And then he generated 21.7% of his batted balls last year were line drives. Clay Holmes, let's take a look at his. Clay Holmes' line drive percentage last year was 18%. 18%. Fly balls, Clay Holmes had a 15.2. Last year, Max Fried had a 16.1. These are very similar pitchers. Very similar pitchers. I look at his other numbers. His whiff percentage last year. He was ranked in the 84th percentile with a 30.2% whiff. So that's great, according to Baseball Savant. Ground ball percentage, 64.6, 100th percentile. His barrel percentage, 84th percentile. So he doesn't get barreled up a lot. His fastball velo, 88th percentile. And he added 2 more pitches. He's got a 4-seam, he's got a sinker, he's got a slider, he's got a curve, he's got a sweeper, and now a kick change. So he added pitches. He's looked great so far. I mean, I don't know what there's not to love about Clay Holmes so far in spring training. And like I said, we look more at starters. We look more at pitchers in spring training because spring training numbers for pitchers usually generate to regular season numbers. Whereas hitters, we all know Aaron Judge isn't going to hit 083. We all know Francisco Lindor isn't going to hit in the hundreds. We all know that. But for pitchers, we got to buy in. So I don't think the rotation is as bad as it was, Peter. I would much rather have Max Fried in my rotation. Don't get me wrong. I'd much rather have Clark Schmidt or Rodon or Will Warren over a Paul Blackburn, a Griffin Cannon, or a Tyler McGill. But let's be real. Clay Holmes would probably be the number 2 on the Yankees right now as a starter. David Peterson, probably the number 3 as a starter. When Sean Manaea returns, he would probably be the number 2. So you guys, the Yankees right now have Max Fried. And I would say Rodon, like you look at, all right, compare ones, Max Fried to Senga. I'd probably roll with Max Fried, although Senga can be better than Max Fried. I will not hold that out. Number 2s, I mean, Clay Holmes versus Carlos Rodon. Right now, I'm rocking with Clay Holmes. Number 3, Clark Schmidt or David Peterson. I think David Peterson probably edges him based off last year. And then look at number 4s. I mean, would you rather Stroman or Tyler McGill? I'm going Stroman. And then same thing, 5, I'm taking Will Warren probably over Paul Blackburn. But I mean, so the Yankees probably have 2.5 better starters than the Mets right now. 2.5. All right, let's talk about this battle between Brett Baty and Luisangel Acuna. And then Jeff McNeil, who's been lighting it up in spring training. Then we'll hop into the Justin Fields, signing with the Jets, Giants, adding to their defense. Jets also made some moves. Andre Sisco, signing with the Jets. I like that pickup. I do love that pickup. Let's talk about it. And then why I think the Giants should draft Abdul Carter. But Jeff McNeil has been playing great. If Jeff McNeil, it's his spot to lose. And this leads me into Brett Baty and Luisangel Acuna. Because I think Luisangel Acuna's ceiling is much higher than a utility player. I think his ceiling is much higher than a part-time utility player, which is what Brett Baty will be for the Mets to start 2025. I'm not saying Brett Baty doesn't have a high ceiling anymore, but we all know Brett Baty can rake in the AAA. Luisangel Acuna played 14 games last year at the MLB level and had a lot of success, but he didn't have success in the AAA. Baty has. Baty conquered AAA. Acuna hasn't. Baty's 25. Acuna's 22. Like I said, Acuna's ceiling, in my opinion, is higher than the role that is being offered. So that's why I think Brett Baty will be on the opening day roster over Acuna, and I think he should be. Now, this leads me into McNeil. Because if McNeil stinks like he did in the first half of last year, like he did in the first half of 2023, then he's losing his job. And he would likely lose his job to Brett Baty if he's performing well. And if it's not Brett Baty, it will be Luisangel Acuna. And that's where I think Acuna's role is best fit. I think his best fit is rake in AAA. And then if McNeil stinks, which might not even happen anymore because he looks great in spring training with his new swing. But like I said, I'm not buying in to hitters too much in spring training. I mean, I think that's his path to the league in 2025 at least. Because I think his ceiling's higher. His ceiling's higher than that part-time utility role. I'm not saying who's better, who's not, but all right, we've been on for an hour. Let's talk some football now. Then we'll talk the Knicks. Let's just close it off with the Knicks. Played a great game last night. Knicks played a phenomenal game last night. I'm a little worried that we don't have Mr. Brunson for a significant period of time, probably at least out another 2 weeks, but we'll see. We'll see. All right, I'll be right back. I'm going to take a quick break. Talk about this NFL buzz right now. Justin Fields. I got the Jets hoodie on because Justin Fields is my freaking quarterback, and I've been dying all the offseason. If you've been listening to my football talk, Justin Fields is the guy I wanted, and for the first time, I mean, last year, that was, or 2 years ago was the first time probably. I was like, we got to get this guy. We got to get this guy. And we got him. And there was Aaron Rodgers, but it came to shambles. And we could get that same result with Justin Fields a year like last year where Justin Fields goes out there and sucks. But I'm holding out hope because the kid's only 26 and he had 1,100 rushing yards in 2022. So I'm holding out hope. I'm holding out hope that Justin Fields can potentially save our asses and take us to the postseason next year. And we'll talk about their postseason chances with Justin Fields next. All right, I'll be right back. One guy who's been a lot more consistent than he was last year, who I want to get into on the offensive end, Anthony Volpe. I mean, he's living up to the hype that he had last year. Obviously, he performed well on the defensive side, capturing that Gold Glove award, hitting over 20 home runs. But this season, a little bit less home runs, but the batting average has seen an increase. The on-base percentage has seen an increase. And then obviously his speed on the base paths always kills opposing teams. So what do you think Anthony Volpe is doing differently this year than last that he's seen so much more success from?
Yeah, well, first in the field, he's always been great defender. So I don't think there was much to improve there. But on the offensive side, I think he's really just trying to hit the ball the other way more, be more consistent, make more solid contact. And he's been able to do it. I love when you try to make adjustments, you realize what was working, what wasn't working, and you make an adjustment in the offseason, and you come back and it works. That's something you love to see. So he's been definitely, obviously, with the higher average and getting on base more. But when you look at the actual mechanics of the swing, he's leveling out a little bit more. The bat path is more through the zone. He's not trying to pull the balls.
All right, we're back. Quick break. No long breaks. We gotta get this complete. Gotta get to bed. We got work in the morning. If Pops is watching, 9 a.m. sharp, baby. All right. So this NFL offseason through 2 days has probably been the most wild offseason I've ever seen. Sam Darnold going to the Seahawks because the Seahawks decided to trade Geno Smith to the Las Vegas Raiders. Whoa. Daniel Jones, who I thought was a lock to go back to the Minnesota Vikings and kind of try to revamp his career, says, nah, I'll take more money. I'll take $14 million and go to the Colts and battle it out with Anthony Richardson, which is making me panic a little bit because I just traded for Daniel Jones in my Dynasty League because I thought Daniel Jones was going to go back to the Vikings and have a career resurgence like Sam Darnold did with the Vikings last year, thinking he would play great with Kevin O'Connell, have Justin Jefferson, all these great things, Jalen Naylor. I thought he was going to play great. But no, TJ Hawkinson, I thought. So that kind of upset me a little bit. Kind of upset me because I just traded for him. And then about a day later, goes to the Colts. So that kind of sucks. And this is a 2 QB league. So that's why I traded for Jones. I'm going to use him as my flex, my super flex. All right, but Jones to the Colts, Geno to the Seahawks, Darnold. Whew, that was wild, too. Seeing Darnold go to the Seahawks over the Vikings, that was wild. Because I thought it would make sense for him to go back to the Vikings. I mean, he played great with them. But he got paid $90 million. I think up to 100 after incentives if he hits those. Then we got Aaron Rodgers likely going to Pittsburgh, which is going to be insane because Pittsburgh and Jets, they play week 1 opening night. So we could get Justin Fields, who the Steelers benched for Russell Wilson, versus Aaron Rodgers, who the Jets broke up with. That is going to be fun. And do the Giants get Aaron Rodgers? I don't think so. I would be shocked at this point. Talking to some guys at Fansided who have some contacts. I'm not going to say any names, but they think it's a lock that Aaron Rodgers will be a Steeler and that Russell Wilson will be a Giant. So that's my little news break there. Russell Wilson's probably going to be a Giant. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But Kirk Cousins is still an option. So I'm still holding out hope that they don't even get Russell Wilson and they go for Kirk Cousins because I think Kirk Cousins is a better fit. And I also heard that they might try to get Abdul Carter at number 3. And we're going to talk about that too. But Justin Fields is a Jet. They also added Andre Sisco. They're bringing back Jermaine Sherwood. The Jets are making moves. Now, Justin Fields. This is interesting. This is very interesting. It is a little weird because Justin Fields got paid $40 million by the Jets. That's a lot of money. Now, some people are saying it's going to be a QB battle between Justin Fields, a rookie quarterback, and Tyrod Taylor. But it wouldn't make sense for me that Justin Fields, a guy getting paid $20 million a year, who's got $30 million guaranteed, would be the backup. So when I'm talking about this Jets team going into this year, I'm talking about them with Justin Fields as the starter. That's what I'll say up front. Justin Fields is going to be the starter. Now, what I like about the Justin Fields signing, I've said it all offseason, you need a mobile quarterback. You need a mobile quarterback. Justin Fields is undoubtedly a mobile quarterback. Outside of Lamar Jackson, I would say Justin Fields is the best running quarterback in football. No doubt about it. You look at his numbers throughout his years. Rushing stats, let's bring them up right now. Justin Fields in 2021 through 12 games, 420 rushing yards. In 2022, had 1,143 rushing yards, 8 touchdowns. He averaged 76.2 rushing yards a game. In 2023, in 13 games, he had 657 rushing yards, averaged over 50 a game. With the Steelers, in 6 games, only 289 rushing yards, but still played pretty good. Rushed for 5 touchdowns in those 6 games, had a 4-2 record, threw for 5 touchdowns, threw for over 1,100 yards, only 1 interception. So he played pretty good with the Steelers last year, led them to 4 wins in their first 6 games. So I see what the Jets saw in him. I do. Because now I'm thinking we can run a lot more RPOs with Justin Fields and Breece Hall. I think this opens up a lot more game for Breece Hall. I think the offensive scheme next year is rush. We got a mobile quarterback. We got Breece Hall, who has the ability to be a top 10 running back in football. Last year, Breece Hall didn't have a great year. Breece Hall took a significant step back last year compared to his first 2 years in the NFL. Now, that was a lot of, like Aaron Rodgers played a huge role in that. Aaron Rodgers threw the ball more than ever. You look at his 2023 numbers, Breece Hall, receiving-wise, had 591 yards off catches and 994 rushing yards. And in 2022, he had 463 rushing yards in just 7 games. And he racked up 218 yards on the receiving end. Now, this year in 2024, only 876 rushing yards. And receiving-wise, only still 483, pretty good, but not better than what he did in 2023. So what I'm looking for with this signing is open up the game for Breece Hall more, and I think that does. I like the Gerrit Wilson, former Ohio State guys coming together. I think there's still a potential that they do trade for another wide receiver, such as Chris Olave, who I would love. Imagine Olave, Breece, Fields, Wilson. Our offense would have a lot of potential. But here's the biggest part I like about the Jets is their O-line, which is shocking. But I think the Jets should sit at number 7, and I think they should take why am I losing his name right now? Will Campbell. I think he's the best offensive tackle in the draft. I think you get Will Campbell at 7, which could happen. Considering you got Abdul Carter, you got Shadur Sanders, you got Cam Ward, and even Jackson Dart being floated out there as a potential top 5 pick out of nowhere. You got Travis Hunter. Like, they got a lot of guys that could go before Will Campbell. So the Jets don't even trade for Chris Olave. Let's say they just get a reliable number 2 receiver. So you got Gerrit Wilson, reliable number 2 receiver, whoever that is. Breece Hall, Justin Fields. A lot of talent with the guys who will have the ball in their hands. Now, all you need is protection. Well, Joe Tippmann proved that he is a reliable center. He's a guy who played in every single snap on the offensive end last year. He's young. It's going to be his 3rd year in the league. Elijah Vera Tucker. We all know how good Elijah Vera Tucker is. He'll be healthy. Olu Fashanu. I mean, how can you not love him? I think that was you can say what you want, that Joe Douglas should have taken Brock Bowers, but Olu, in my opinion, was a great pick. Great pick. I mean, he was probably the best tackle out of the draft last year when he was on the field, when he was healthy. So you got Olu, you got Tippmann, you got Vera Tucker, John Simpson probably coming back. Get Will Campbell, and you have a very good starting offensive line. And I think that would be huge for guys like Breece Hall, Justin Fields. And then if Justin Fields can just get a little bit better at passing and Gerrit Wilson can help him. Because you look at the Bears. The Bears had a terrible offensive line with Justin Fields. They didn't have Breece Hall. They didn't have Gerrit Wilson. And then you look at Justin Fields with the Steelers, where he had Najee Harris. He had George Pickens. He had a really good offensive line. And he won 4 games in the first 6. So I like that. I think Justin Fields can be a good quarterback, a reliable quarterback. But can he take that next step? And this is why I love this move. Because he had the most upside out of everyone outside of Sam Darnold in free agency this year. Has more upside than Danny Jones. Obviously more upside than Aaron Rodgers at this point in Aaron Rodgers' career. Which I think that was, you have to get rid of Aaron Rodgers if you're the Jets. It was the ultimate move they had to make. You don't want to be owing that guy $60 million over the next 2 years for him to potentially play 1 year and probably not even win the Super Bowl. Because we're not talking about a Super Bowl. Even with Aaron Rodgers, this team does not win the Super Bowl. So that, I would say he's better than Matthew Stafford, who was floated out there as leaving the Rams potentially, but now he's locked up with the Rams again. Kirk Cousins, who will probably be on the move at some point, has more upside than him, has more upside than Russell Wilson, has more upside than Geno Smith, who got moved, who I didn't think was going to be on the move. He has a lot more upside than almost every single quarterback in free agency outside of Sam Darnold. He's only 26 years old. He will get his first real chance, in my opinion, where a team is saying, we believe in you, go prove us right. So that's where I like Justin Fields. And, coming into the draft where we drafted Zach Wilson at number 2, a lot of Jet fans wanted Justin Fields to be that pick. Obviously, everybody wanted to tank for Trevor, but, you look at Justin Fields coming out of college, he was insanely good. Insanely good. He was a good passer, too. He led the Big Ten in passing in his sophomore year and his junior year in college. He had the most passing yards in the Big Ten with 3,273 yards, 41 touchdowns. So most passing yards and most passing touchdowns. Same thing in year 3 for him. 2,100 passing yards, 22 passing touchdowns. He had a 67.2 completion percentage in 2019 at Ohio State, 70.2 in 2020. And then you look at his rushing numbers, and the rushing has already translated over. But 484 rushing yards while also getting sacked a ton. Took a lot of sacks, and we can't forget. You get negative rushing yards for some reason when you get sacked in college, which is weird. So I look more at the rushing touchdowns. 2019, he had 10, and then 5 in 2020. I am pumped that we got Justin Fields. I am very pumped. I think we might get, if we can turn Justin Fields around, I'd just be very happy. I'd be very happy. But let's flip to the defensive side because we lost DJ Reed, which sucks. It does suck that we lost DJ Reed. But we improved the secondary. We bring in one of the better safeties in football in Andre Cisco, who's still young. He's only 24 years old. I love that pickup. Andre Cisco in 2022 had 3 interceptions. In 2023 had 4 interceptions. Only 1 this year. But, the tackles, you got to love the tackles. Over 70 tackles in 2022, over 60 tackles in 23, over 65 tackles in 2024, just this past year. So I love the addition of Andre Cisco because we really needed a safety. So our secondary is shaping up to be pretty good with Cisco and Sauce Gardner there. And Sauce Gardner, in my opinion, a 2-time All-Pro, first-team All-Pro. I think Sauce Gardner, you got to pay him now because, with the money that cornerbacks are getting even this offseason so far, I think you got to make him the highest paid cornerback in the league. You got to lock him up. He's the face of the franchise, only 24 years old, probably the best player all around with the Jets. But, you got to lock him up. You got to lock him up. Because, like I said, he's the best player on the Jets. All right, other offseason moves. Also, we're going to be probably going to have Allen Lazard, who I wouldn't mind as a number 2, number 3 receiver. And also the addition of Justin Fields probably helps out with the Gerrit Wilson situation because we heard that he might want to request a trade, but he's not. But I love the moves they made so far. Andre Cisco was a big signing. I think Justin Fields was a huge signing, and I think this team is. I'm not going to say they're a guaranteed playoff team, but I think they can end the playoff drought. I don't think the Jets are as bad as they were last year. I think they're so far improving their defense. They improved their offense, in my opinion, so far. I mean, losing Aaron Rodgers sucks, yes, but like I said, we need a mobile quarterback. So they're improving. They got a better coach. Aaron Glenn, in my opinion, will be better than Robert Saleh. I like the guys he brought in. I do like the outlook of this Jets team. All right, but let's talk about the Giants because the Giants are a little bit more juicy. They're a little bit more juicy. Jets, they're not in the position the Giants were. Jets are resetting. They can lose a lot next year, and, nobody will be angry. Well, we'll be angry, but not as angry as last year when we lost. But the Giants, they're looking to win. Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are looking to save their jobs. They have to. They have to win this year. If Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll want to come back for 2026, they need to win. They need a playoff appearance at the very least. Aaron Rodgers, I think, would help the Giants. I don't think they have a terrible offensive line. I really don't. I mean, you look at the Giants' offensive line, it's not terrible. I mean, last year they sucked when they lost Andrew Thomas, but if any team lost their best O lineman, they would suck. I mean, Jermaine Elmunar, I'm butchering his name. He'll probably be the right tackle. Maybe move Evan Neal to guard. Try to see what you can get out of him. Joe Runyon, I mean, he's a pretty good protector over there too. John Michael Smits, I kind of like him. I think he's dependable. So I think they have a decent O-line. Malik Neighbors, I love him. I think he has the ability to be a top 5, even top 3 receiver in the NFL with his skill. Tyrone Tracy, I mean, he broke out this year out of nowhere. Nobody expected Tyrone Tracy to come out here and become a running back 1, but he did. He did. But now the question is quarterback. Because defensively, I like them. Defensively, I mean, you got Dexter Lawrence. We all know he's probably the best defensive tackle in football. I really do think Dexter Lawrence is the best defensive tackle in football. Brian Burns, I think he's going to have a better year than he did last year. Bobby Okereke, you like him. Micah McFadden can have a better year than he did last year. Hopefully he gets something out of Kayvon Thibodeau, which I think they can. So the Giants, I do like the moves that they've made so far. They've helped out their defense a little bit. But the question is, what are they going to do at quarterback? What are the Giants going to do at quarterback? And they also kept Darius Slayton, which I think is huge. Can't leave that one out. But Russell Wilson, I don't think moves the needle. Aaron Rodgers does. I think Aaron Rodgers makes them a postseason team. Russell Wilson, you can make that debate. I mean, he was on a postseason team last year. But I think Aaron Rodgers does the better job. That's why the Steelers want Rodgers over Russ. That's why everybody wants Rodgers right now. Which is crazy to say, but quarterback needy teams want Aaron Rodgers for a reason. Because Aaron Rodgers playing behind a damaged offensive line that didn't have Elijah Vera Tucker, that was missing Olu Fashanu in the back end of the year, that had Greg Zuerlein miss multiple kicks, coming off a torn Achilles at 41. Aaron Rodgers still went out there and threw 28 passing touchdowns and over 3,800 yards. And his head coach was Robert Saleh for the first 5 games, and then Jeff Ulbrich for the remainder of the season. So factoring in the coaching staff, factoring in the down years from the offensive line, factoring in the horrendous season their defense put together compared to 2023. Even 2022, the Jets defense was really good. But 2024, their defense was not what it was the past 2 years. So when you factor in all that, Aaron Rodgers actually played pretty well. Like I said, 41, coming off a year of torn Achilles. He put up a better year numbers-wise than Jaden Daniels, even Pat Mahomes. I think if Aaron Rodgers was on the Washington Commanders, the Commanders are still a 12-win team. I think if Aaron Rodgers was on the Steelers are still a postseason team. But Aaron Rodgers was on the Jets. He was on the Jets. With the Giants, with a guy like Malik Neighbors, with Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson. Like I said, I do like their offensive line. With the defense that they have, They have Shane Bowen calling those plays on the defensive side. I know they weren't that great last year, but at the same time, like, the ball was not in their hands a lot. So the defense was on the field a lot. So we got to take that into account too. I think the Giants would be better with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think they get him. I think they're going to get Russ. From what I'm hearing, Russ is likely, their plan B right now. Plan A is Aaron Rodgers. Plan B is Russell Wilson. Plan C, what I heard is they were potentially looking at Jimmy Garoppolo, but he decided to go back to the Rams. So they're really waiting it out for Aaron Rodgers. They're seeing, what is Aaron Rodgers going to do? Because if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Steelers and not the Giants, then they got to pivot to Russell Wilson. And it only makes sense for Russell Wilson to just go to the Giants, because where else would Russ start? But let's talk about the draft. At number 3, if they get Rodgers or Russ, I don't think they should draft a quarterback at number 3. I don't. If they want to draft a quarterback, they have to trade up and get Cam Ward. They cannot draft Shedeur Sanders. Maybe you trade up and you draft Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe, like from their second round into the first round. But that number 3 pick has to be Abdul Carter. It has to be Abdul Carter. Their defense would become that much better if they draft Abdul Carter. He is a generational talent. And I know, maybe the Kayvon Thibodeau draft pick scares you, but Abdul Carter was much better than Kayvon Thibodeau in college. Abdul Carter at Penn State last year had 12 sacks. 12 sacks. He forced 24 fumbles. That's insane. That's insane. So, why not? Why not? I'd go for Abdul Carter at number 3. I think he could change the whole entire landscape of the Giants going into next year. I think Abdul Carter could help the Giants defense become a top 10 defense. Whereas a Shedeur Sanders, if he was in last year's draft or the year before, even this version of Shedeur Sanders, he's probably not a first-round pick. Jackson Dart, I've seen it before. Quarterbacks have great combines. Zach Wilson, cough, cough. And they somehow get bloated into a top 3 pick. I don't think they should panic and take Jackson Dart. I don't think they should panic and take Shedeur Sanders. I think the smart move is draft Abdul Carter, who would be a game-changing piece on defense for a lot of years. I know you need a quarterback, but when you look at the NFC, there's not a lot of powerhouse quarterbacks. A lot of game managers. Jalen Hurts, as great as he is he a top 5 quarterback? No. Jared Goff, as great as he is he a top 5 quarterback? No. The only game-changing quarterback, in my opinion, in the NFC right now is probably Jaden Daniels. There's no other game-changing quarterback in the NFC. So the Giants don't need to go out there and get Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart and keep their fingers crossed that they will be a game-changing quarterback. Draft the game-changing guarantee in Abdul Carter. And have a defensive line of Abdul Carter, Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau, and then you got Bobby Okereke, and you got Brian Burns. That's 5 A-plus, probably 4 A-plus players. And then probably a B-plus at worst in Kayvon Thibodeau. They gotta draft Abdul Carter. They have to. All right, let's talk about the Knicks. The Knicks added P.J. Tucker on a 10-day contract, which I like. They need a little bit of a grittiness on their team, especially this year. Also, Karl Anthony Towns. I love you, man. I love you. I hate Draymond Green. The way, he didn't apologize for basically calling out Karl Anthony Towns for trying to ditch a game because Jimmy Butler was playing. That was a bunch of BS, man. But they had a big win against the Sacramento Kings. And the Kings ain't a bad team. They had a hard-fought win, 133 to 104. They freaking blew them off. Whoa. They blew them out, I should say. OG Anunoby, 24 points. Big performance out of him. Josh Hart, 18 points, 6 rebounds. Josh Hart playing great this year. You look at Josh Hart's numbers overall. I mean, 14.5 points per game, 9.7 rebounds per game, shooting 55% from the field. He's going off this year. McCall Bridges, I mean, for 5 first-round picks, whatever. He's still averaging 17.2 a game. No one is expecting McCall Bridges to average over 20 on this team. And McCall's knocking down his shots. I mean, he's shooting 49% from the field, shooting 35% from 3. He's doing his job. He's doing what he came here to do. Miles McBride played a great game last night, filling in for Jalen Brunson. I mean, McBride went absolutely off. 7 assists, 21 points, shot 7-11 from the field. Had a plus-minus of plus 32 last night. Big. Mitchell Robinson coming back. He's been huge. Mitchell Robinson, in the few minutes he's on the court, has had a huge effect on this team. You look at the plus-minus from him. He had a plus 26 last night, plus 2 against the LA Lakers. And his first game back, he had a plus 11. Against Miami, he had a minus 6, minus 10 against Golden State. But we played like crap against Golden State, and we played like crap against Miami, even though we scratched and clawed our win. But Mitch has been a huge help in the few minutes that he's playing. And he will play more. He will play more as the season progresses. But when Brunson comes back, that's when this team will finally be complete. We will finally see this complete team, and we can finally make a decision as fans and say, this team is not the 0-7 team it was against those top 3 teams in the NBA. We can make that decision then. But we'll see, man. We'll see what the Knicks do. I'm not going to spend too much time on them because we are an hour and 30 into this pod. I got to get to bed. Oh, my. It's 12:12. Yeah, we do got to get to bed. But, I mean, the Knicks, I'm not expecting them to win the NBA Finals. I'm not expecting the Knicks to win the NBA Finals until they get to the Eastern Conference Finals. I've been saying that. I will hold to that. But just enjoy the ride. Enjoy the ride. Don't be upset because going into this year, on paper, yeah, we look great, but we lack depth. We do lack depth. I think the year for the Knicks will be next year. Another offseason. See what we can add for the bench. You know, I like OG. I like Cat. I like Brunson. I like McCall Bridges. We have a good foundation. We have a very good foundation. Now all we need, when you build a house, you want to have a good foundation, and then you build the house. You make it pretty. The Knicks have their foundation. They just got to build the house and make it look pretty now. And I think that'll happen over the offseason. And then next year, I think the Knicks become one of those top 3 teams. This year, get to the playoffs. I mean, last year, we were talking about the Knicks as finals contenders because they had a great January through February. And then what happened in the playoffs? We fell apart. So I don't think we should even panic, too, because we know what Brunson can do in the playoffs. Let's see what Cat can do with Brunson in the playoffs. Let's see what Bridges can do in the playoffs. Let's see what OG can do in the playoffs when he's healthy. Let's see, man. Let's see. I'm enjoying the ride. I'm just going to enjoy the ride and see where they take me. All right, that's it for today, though. Thank you guys for watching. Whether you're on X, YouTube, Twitter, Peter. The Mets rotation is better than the Yankees rotation. They are. All right, I'm out of here. Thank you for watching. Deuces.